Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and violin tutor. If the violin is shaking when you're trying to do vibrato, that is the number one sign that you are attempting vibrato too soon. Number one, the first thing you're going to need is a violin. I have been playing the violin since I was 4 years old. I went to university and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree in music.
With the amazing talent that's Alison Sparrow. Alison, come out here.
So bear with me if there are any technical hitches, I'm sure it'll be fine. For about 5 years I was an examiner for the London College of Music. And over the years I've seen basically the music world from every kind of possible view really, and because of that it has enabled me to write my own violin course. Hello everyone, welcome. So there we go, that's kind of all you really need to know. And don't forget guys, anyone can learn to play the violin. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. So today is Saturday obviously, and apologies for not being able to go with my regular live yesterday. Friday at 5 p.m. We just had a sort of emergency drain issue of random of all things, and the guy was coming out at the exact same time as I was supposed to be doing the live, and I couldn't move it. I couldn't do anything about it, so I thought I would move it to today. So I don't know how many people I'm going to have joining me on this live today, but sorry if I've kind of buggered up your plans for that. So Tessa, hello, I can see you've joined me, so that's good. Nor Borgi, I think. How to learn tutorials online without a teacher. Where should I search? Okay, I have the answer for you. I talk about it all the time on my channel. I have a 1 to 30 tutorial course, which covers across these books above here. The course is $59.99 US. Everything is 100% downloadable. There are videos linked in all of those books as well, so the videos I've posted on YouTube, so you can watch those. So the course is interactive, but my course will guarantee to take you from a complete beginner to a very decent, accomplished intermediate player. So if you are trying to learn online, then you can absolutely use my course. My course is designed over 20 years of teaching, and I decided to put all my teaching into a book course and give it to you guys over the internet because there wasn't really anything kind of available. I can see Ben Independent has says, you've got a beginner and intermediate courses. Are there any advanced you can recommend? So this is where it just gets a little bit tricky. You won't find an advanced course anywhere because it doesn't work that way. It's very difficult to kind of, it's very difficult to articulate why that is the case. But when you get to a certain level, the technique is mostly based on you. So there are things that you need to learn when you're playing the violin. So for example, you need to learn how to hold the bow. You need to learn how to hold the violin. You need to know the names of the strings. You need to know the positions. You need to know all of that kind of thing. Once you've done that sort of thing, then you need to start learning all the different techniques and things. So the different bowing techniques, the scales, all that kind of thing. So there's lots of different things in the music that you need to learn. When you get more advanced, for example, so this is when you get to Songbook 3. So this will be when you finish the 30 lessons. When you get to Songbook 3, and you're looking at this, kind of music here. To a beginner, it looks quite complicated. So it's not, because once you've got to the end of my course, you will understand everything that you see in this piece of music. So yes, it might look a bit tricky to you now, but if you're just starting out, then of course it's going to look tricky to you. But all of the what does MF mean? What does that line mean? What does F mean? What are these little square things going down there? What's this curvy line going above here? Why are all these notes? Why are they joined together? Why do they have two lines joining it? All those kind of questions are covered in a beginner course. Or beginner stroke intermediate course. So suffice to say, when you get to an end of, hello DIY Lime Slab, when you get to an end of a course, for example, my course, just because I know I've written that, or I've written it that way. When you get to the end of a course or to the end of my course, there will be nothing more for you to learn. You'll know everything there is to know about the violin. That's not to say that you won't know all the nuances and you won't know how to specifically bring out the flavour of a piece of music, but you'll have all the ingredients there. You know, it's like following a recipe. I've given you all the ingredients. You need flour, eggs, milk, etc., etc. And I've told you how to do it. Preheat the oven, sift in the flour, weigh out 200 grams of butter, etc., etc. So I've told you how to do all of that. So when you come to make a cake or whatever it is, you know how to do that. The difficulty comes in kind of the presentation on how to further that cake to make it even better than what everybody else is doing. And that might be that you need to sift the flour in a different way, or you need to use something different to kind of beat it with, or I don't know, I'm just kind of making stuff up now. But do you sort of see what I mean? So when you are learning these, when you are learning to play the violin and you're learning from online resources, me, whatever, we can teach you, or I can teach you everything you need to know about music and about the violin till there's no more questions for you to ask. What does this do? You already know that. What about that? You already know that. That kind of thing. However, once you know that, that's probably going to take you to, you know, let's say an intermediate player. If you then want to push your playing on to advanced, does require somebody specifically there to help you move that on, because that's more about the nuances of the music. So I can't just put in a book that if you're playing a piece of music by Beethoven, that when you get to bar 7 you've got to play it this way. When you get to bar 8, put a bit more feeling in it. When you get to bar 17, you know, lift your elbow up and play. It doesn't work that way. So this is where you would find that you would need somebody to help you move on to the next level and get those extra nuances and extra flavours out of the piece of music. Those unfortunately cannot be bottled up or booked up and written in a course. I really, really wish it could, but it just can't. I've never taught the same thing twice to a student when I'm working on those kind of pieces. So if I've got a student that I'm preparing for a piano exam or a violin exam or whatever it is, and excuse me, they've got to the point where they can play the music. So they've got to the point where they've opened up the piece of music. Oh, let's do it this way. Where they've opened up the piece of music and they can play from start to finish, and that's great. But it's sort of, you know, it's a bit boring. There's no flavour in there. So then I'll say to them, right, why don't we start putting a little bit of feeling, a little bit of this, a little bit of that in there? And that's where it is very, very, very unique to the individual. Granted that there are some things that present themselves in the music that are going to be very similar based on the composer, for example, but everything is going to be different. How I put a piece of music across to you, a piece of Beethoven's, you know, a concerto by Beethoven, whatever, how I play that across to you will be very different to how someone else plays it. That's why we have players like Maxim Vengroff, Hilary Hahn, Itzhak Perlman, and they all have different flavors. Why? Because they all bring out different things in different pieces. So I never teach the same person twice. So to cut a very long question, the answer to a very long question short, that's why you can't bottle up and teach that. You just can't put that kind of thing in a book. So that's that. Okay. How is everybody doing today? Sorry about the change in day again, as I was just saying earlier. We've got a few new names that I can see here. 6600 Mum, first timer. Thank you for your string information videos. You're welcome. These have helped me make a wiser choice of strings. Yeah, it's just about looking at what the strings do, looking at what you think your violin is like. Is your violin loud? Is it soft? Is it sweet? Is it quite brash? Do you want to bring out that harshness? Do you want to, you know, if you put metal strings on it, do you want that to come out a bit more? Do you want to kind of mute it down a little bit? Maybe try some gut strings or something like that. So yeah, it's about taking what flavor your violin is, what strings you've got, and then what you want to take out or suppress, for example, in your violin. So yeah, if you just do a little bit of research into them, it helps. Microsyntax. Hello. Are you making another piano book? No plans to make another piano book at the moment. I have plenty of those, but no more plans. Kunal Mudgal, I think I've pronounced that correctly. Hello, how much time do you recommend for a beginner to learn the violin on a daily basis, as I have a hectic schedule? I would say ideally you probably want to be learning, or you probably want to be playing, about 6 days a week. 7 days a week is great, but you can always get away with 1 day a week just having a rest and this, that, and the other. Ideally, you want to be playing 6 days a week, maybe even 5. I wouldn't really want to go any less than 5 would be my minimum, really. I wouldn't want to go less than 5, because then you're down to 4, and then you're 3 days of just not doing anything. And I feel like that's too many days, especially if it turns out to be 3 days on the trot. I think that's just too many days to not actually be playing. So I'd say that you want to be playing, ideally, let's go for 6 days a week. And as a beginner and you're just starting out, probably about half an hour, 30 to 45 minutes, depending on what course you're following, what you're learning, and what you're playing. So 30 minutes minimum, up to about 45, I would say. Right, Sue, hello. When I'm playing fast songs, my thumb goes out flat. What should I do? Do you mean, I'm assuming you're not talking about the bow. I'm assuming you're talking about obviously holding the violin here. When you're saying it goes out flat, I'm not entirely sure what you're meaning. When I'm playing, my thumb is mostly sitting here, so my thumb isn't sitting up at all. My thumb is sitting sort of right underneath the neck of the violin, so it's holding it. Let me see if I can just move around this way. Yeah, so when I'm playing, there you go. There, you can see that. So when I'm playing, so if I'm playing on the G string more, my thumb is sliding more under this way. When I'm on the E string, my thumb is about there. It never goes higher than that point there. Can you sort of see that there? So I'm not quite sure what you mean about flat. Are you talking about it sort of flicks out? It shouldn't be doing that. You want to try, and if you're holding with the pad of your thumb, you want to be trying to keep it sort of around the neck. Maybe you're holding it a little bit differently depending if you've been taught somewhere else, or a teacher or whatever. I have my thumb here. Some people do have their thumb up there, so they hold it with the neck of the violin more kind of actually in your hand there. So yeah, it depends what you're doing there, but it shouldn't be flat if you're holding it the way I teach it. I'm assuming you're following my lessons, then you're going to be sort of twisting underneath the neck. Right. DIY Slime Lab. Hello. How do I slur without hearing the open string that came off? From example, slurring from the G to D string to B and A on the A string without hearing the previous string I came from. If the music is telling you that you need to slur 2 notes together and you're jumping strings in the middle, something's not quite right. The music will never tell you to do that, because you physically can't sort of do that without breaking it up. The music will probably want you to move into another position, so that instead of going from, what did you say there? So a G on the D string, so you've got your third finger on the D string there, to a B on the A string. Okay, my mistake. Scrap what I just said there. But also, you'll never be, if you are jumping from one string to another, that will never be a slur because you're not really able to do that. So going back to your question, if you're going from a G on the D string, so what I would do is, I can see what's happening. So if you're lifting up your G string to try, and you're lifting up the G on the D string to try and get to the first finger on the A string, and you're kind of getting that kind of noise in the middle there. The only thing that you can really do about that is to have your first finger sitting there ready on that A string. So when you've got your third finger down here, have this finger here, and then what you'll need to do is just lift lift this third finger sort of off and away a little bit, so it's not touching the A string, so that you can kind of slur over. So instead of having to lift it up, what you want to do is try and move that third finger across. Do you see what I mean? So the third finger is on. Sorry, I hope you can see this. The third finger is on. The first finger is on. But what I'm doing is I'm hooking my third finger so far over that it isn't touching. It's so far over it isn't touching the A string, if that sort of makes sense. So then you've got both fingers down at the same time. It's the equivalent of double stopping, actually. Double stopping is when you're playing more than one note at the same time, but it's the equivalent to double stopping. So sometimes you have to what we call double stop those notes so that you are actually playing the G and the B at the exact same time. If you want to get rid of that ding that you get in the middle when you're lifting up that third finger there. So double stop both the notes if you don't like that sound or you can't get a clean sound. You hook that third finger right over so it's not touching the A behind it, and then you'll be able to get those notes really nice and clean. Okay. Hiker Gaia 001, I'm on lesson 18 of your book and I'm really struggling with slurred bows. Every time I switch the finger while bowing, I can hear the sound of the switching. It's subtle, but it does not feel smooth. Similar kind of thing that I've just covered there. I wouldn't worry too much about that. For me, that would be more of something that will come in time. Be conscious of it, be aware of it, but as long as you feel that you're doing everything that you should do, as long as your bow is slurring as it should do, I don't really think it's going to cause too much of a problem in time. I think it's one of those things that it's just something that beginners do, but it generally tends to kind of sort of go away on its own as you progress and you get better. Even though you're on lesson 18, you're not that far into your violin kind of career anyway, so you won't have actually been playing all that long anyway. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just be aware of it. That's kind of it, really. There isn't without seeing you and hearing you. That's the kind of best thing that I can sort of say. But it's generally one of those things that does tend to go away as you get better with your playing anyway. Zachary, hello, I'm so excited to watch you live. Hi Zachary, how are you? Chris, what time do you call this? I've just skipped a load. Claire, okay, hi Alison, I've been using my violin strings for 1 year plus, but I couldn't tell if the strings are dead. Am I still necessary to change the strings? Any consequences if I don't change them? If you've been using your violin strings excuse me, for 1 year plus, it would probably be time to change them, assuming that you've been playing the violin for significantly throughout that time. If you haven't sort of really been playing the violin an awful lot but in that year space, then maybe not. But if you have been playing the violin for a whole year, I would definitely change the strings. You don't have to go mad with them. You don't have to buy super expensive ones. If you just want a one-size-fits-all set of strings, for example, you can go with Parastro tonicas. They're very good strings to buy. Parastro is the brand. Tonica is the type of string within that brand. So Parastro tonicas, you can go for them. If you've got a student quality violin, they're always a great first timer string. They're very bright and they're very lively without being kind of overboard, but they do bring out a lot of student quality violins that kind of lack the sort of nuances that the more expensive violins have. The cheaper studenty violins or student quality violins, they can be a little bit muted in sound, so Parastro tonicas are great for them. But yeah, if you've had your strings on for a year, it doesn't hurt to change them, but nothing will happen if you don't. You will just eventually find that the coating will be really, really, really worn off. It might be harder going to play just because everything is worn off. So I think somebody asked this question a few lives ago, and I likened it to the brakes on a car. So you will always, when your brake pads are wearing out on your car, you'll always be able to brake. You just might not be braking so efficiently as you have been doing, or you would do if you had a new set of brakes on. So when you brake, you don't sort of brake immediately. Then when you have a new brake set of brake pads on, definitely if you have new brake shoes on, when you go to brake, you're literally giving yourself whiplash because you forget how good those new brakes are. So you probably won't notice the difference, and it happens a very, very, very slow process of where the strings are wearing down, but nothing will have that happen to them. But you will just find it potentially very difficult to get a nice sound. You could be fighting with the violin to get a nice sound out of the bow. But if finances allow, get yourself a new set of strings. You'll be thankful for it. It won't be a waste of money. And like I say, go with Presto-tonicas. They're a good price, and they pretty much suit. If you just want a set of strings and you can't be bothered to do all the research into them, you just want a nice set of strings, go for Presto-tonicas. You can't really go wrong with them. Okay, Stephen. Hi, Alison. If I learn to play on an electric violin, will I be in trouble when I move on to classical violin? Yes, I think so. Only because the electric violins are very, very different. They feel very different. They're weighted very differently. If you are playing on a cheaper end electric violin, especially, I think you could end up coming unstuck with when you start to move on to a classical violin, a wooden violin, let's call it. It's always better to learn on a traditional violin, a wooden one, classic one, whatever you want to call it. It's much easier to learn on this because you should be learning all your technique. You should be learning everything on here rather than an electric violin. But I mean, there are no right or wrong. There are no rules. Nothing bad will happen. If you don't really see yourself ever picking up one of these and ever playing on one of these, and it's just for you in your own room, for your own entertainment, for your own pleasure and enjoyment, then go ahead and keep on. But if this is something that you want to take a little bit more seriously, or maybe you want to play in a few little chamber orchestras or something like that, then obviously you're going to need an acoustic violin. You're going to need something like this for sure. So I would learn on one of these and get used to one of these over the electric violin, because you'll just find it a little bit more, the transition to this will just be a little bit trickier. It's always easier to transition from this to an electric violin than from an electric violin to one of these. But like I say, if it's just you in your house, just you and your dog or whatever playing in your house, and you don't see yourself ever needing to play on acoustic violin, then just, crack on. You're not hurting anyone. Jet, hello. I don't think I've seen you in a few weeks, so it's nice to see you. Okay, Hikagaya001, I think I've said that correctly. I'm so grateful for your content. I prepared a whole paragraph to ask my question, but I guess the comment had to be short. I hope you understood my question. Any advice above, really appreciated. So I think I answered your question above. 77 social. Currently working through violin lessons 1 to 10. Excited to start songbook 1 soon. Enjoying the process. Good. Namrantha C. Hello. I'm unable to play vibrato. Every time I try, my hand with the bow vibrates instead of the other hand. I'm just not able to vibrate my left hand while playing the bow. Can you help? Generally, with vibrato, so let me just put it out there first. Vibrato is very, 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 very difficult, and it will take you a very, 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 very long time to nail. Generally speaking, you want to be starting vibrato at the right time. If you are starting vibrato too early, you're going to come across a lot of problems that need sorting out before you start the vibrato. So the reason why you need to be playing the violin for at least a minimum of a good year, and I don't mean, that you started January last year, you played it for a couple of weeks, you left it, and now you're back on it again. I mean a good consistent year. So if you've been playing for a good consistent year, then you should be just about ready to start vibrato. A good indication that you may not be ready to start vibrato yet is if the violin is shaking. So a lot of people A lot of people will find that when they are playing and they're trying to do the vibrato, they can't. Actually, I don't need my bow. They can't, and what happens is the violin shakes. And that's generally because the basics haven't really settled in enough yet. So there's a difference between you knowing the basics and you understanding the basics and you being really good and have nailed the basics. So you may be able to read a bit of sheet music, you may know all the names of the strings and where all the fingers go and everything, but practically wise you might just not be that good at it yet. So trying to start vibrato too early is going to cause you more problems than not. So if if the instrument and the bow and everything in the violin is vibrating really badly, I would say maybe just park the vibrato for a couple of 3 months, get better at the violin, do a little bit more. In fact, you don't even have to get better. You just need to harness that kind of level. It takes a good year to kind of really be good at anything. So make sure you get to that kind of level first before you start trying to do vibrato. So just park it and come back to it, I'd say. Right, next one. Starting home with the pioneers can be done. Hi, I recently discovered, Ashwini Nandu says, I recently discovered your channel. I want to start learning how to play the violin. Can this be done through self-study or do you recommend physical classes? So I answered that question at the beginning of this live. So when we're done, go back and watch that. Sue, I was talking about the bow hold. Damn it. Okay. So you weren't talking about the thumb here, but even still, my thoughts and opinions still hold value for that. So if your thumb is coming through the bow, poking through here, then that's a you problem. Reposition your bow and make sure that the bow doesn't come through. One thing that can really help with that is having these fingers really far down. I think too many people want to hold the bow with the very tips of their fingers, so they're putting their thumb in, putting the fingers in, and holding with the very tips of your fingers. You shouldn't be doing that. There's going to be too much grip. But to try and help keep your thumb in, you can help by trying to move your fingers all the way down. But if your thumb is slipping through, you just have to be vigilant on that. There is no quick fix or little tip or anything like that. That's just that's a you thing that something that happens that you've just got to be aware of. Okay, let me just move down. Zachary, brand new to the violin and having the best time with it. Introduced my teacher to your lessons and we're now playing together. Oh yes, I think I read your comments actually earlier today. Excuse me. Any suggestions on helping to reach the G string notes? So are you talking about, if you're talking about bow and fingers, I'll cover both just in case. So when you're talking about the fingers on the G string moving around, it was kind of what I said earlier about having that thumb move around the neck of the violin. So if my fingers are playing the E string here, my thumb is there. Oh, wrong way around. Let me just go this way around so you can see. So my thumb is here. And then when I'm moving to the G string, my thumb is twisting a little bit further round, but alongside that, my whole arm is moving around. So my hand is, so it's not just about the fingers, because I'm never going to be able to do that. So what I might have to do is bring my whole arm a little bit further round so that I can reach there. If you are talking about the bow, then it's a similar sort of thing. If you're holding the violin and you want the bow on the G string, then it's just a case of lifting up this arm. But with the left hand, it's just a case of moving, having that thumb slide underneath the neck so that you can reach your fingers over and move your arm. You've got a whole arm for a reason. Nobody says you just have to just move the fingers. You can move the whole arm as well. So I hope that helps. Okay. The happy knot. My Guerni violin has a very deep sounding bottom end with a sweet, soft upper register, loud but not super loud in the upper register. How do classical players feel about this tone? It's not really a case of how classical players feel about the tone, it's how you feel about the tone, really. It would only particularly make a difference if you were a solo violinist and you were a solo violinist maybe, and or you played in an orchestra. If you were playing in an orchestra, you wouldn't really particularly want a very loud resounding violin. You'd want something that's, a nice violin, but something that's going to blend in. If you were a soloist, you'd want to pick an instrument for that. So when I was choosing violins back in the day, when I chose this many years ago, I think I've had this 13 years, something like that now. When I was choosing this, I specifically wanted something that was quite sweet all around. I was looking for something quite light and quite sweet. I wanted something solo, so I don't really do a lot of group work. I never really have done. I've always done solo work, so I've always wanted something that would play well as a soloist. So, you choose a violin based on that. But I think it sounds great. I think the sound, I from what you're explaining on your violin, it's deep sounding bottom end, which is great. A sweet, soft upper register, fantastic. Loud but not super loud. I mean, it's the perfect combination. I want your violin by the sounds of that. So yeah, that sounds like the perfect combination. I think if the violin is how you say it is and you've nailed that, then I think you could probably push that further and get even more out of your violin. Make your top end even sweeter. If you haven't already, try a Parastro Gold label on the E string or an olive. Parastro Gold label is going to be slightly louder than an olive. An olive is a gut string, if I remember correctly. An olive, Parastro olive is a gut string. Not quite so resonant and not quite so loud. And I don't mean loud in an annoying way. I mean loud in a nice sweet projection way. But it will be a little bit more sweet and softer, whereas a gold label, if you're really going for it on the higher registers of the E string, the gold label is gonna get out there and do all the work for you. So I've always generally got a gold label on mine. Sometimes I put the olive on, depending. You might want to try something like obligatos. They are very, very nice strings. I believe they're synthetic strings. So obligatos are very good for bringing out a middle range violin. So yours sounds very similar to mine. Mine's very deep on the bottom, and it's very sweet and soft high up as well. Again, not loud, but not too loud. But I don't have much in the middle. I don't know what your middle range is doing. So I haven't really got a lot going on in the middle, and I want to bring that out a bit more. I'm not bothered about having anything in the middle because I prefer a sweeter top end and a deeper bottom end. But try obligatos for the middle. See if that kind of brings it out for you. And if you want to really push that G string and get a lot of power, try a Passione. That's the combination that I've got on mine, and yours sounds very sort of similar-ish to mine. But those are very, very expensive strings as well. So obviously, budget depends. But have a look at those strings and see what it says about those strings, and you might be able to find something that's a little bit cheaper or more budget friendly or whatever in a different brand that is still giving you the same sort of thing that those strings are saying. And if you do end up going for them, put them on and let me know how you get on. Okay, a few more questions. Where are we? I've just moved and skipped. Do the quality of the violin affect the sounds? Yes, not in terms of with a really good rosin, the violin's going to sound amazing. With a really rubbish rosin, the violin is not going to sound amazing. The difference between a high-end rosin or a better rosin and a cheaper rosin is that the cheaper rosin is going to be sticky, it's going to be gluey, it's going to be quite powdery, it's going to be quite rough. It's going to create a lot of scratch and a lot of annoyingness that you're going to have to clean off the violin. A nice high-end one is going to be crystal clear, smooth and clean. So it's more about the quality and the texture. Nice, smooth, clean. It would be like running your car on really, really rubbish petrol and it's choking along and it doesn't like it, or putting in some really nice top end smooth petrol and it's just loving it all the way, that kind of thing. Right. Hi, Marietta. Hello. Nice to see you here. DIY slime lab. Also, when I play with my bow, I've been playing straight, but sometimes my bow slides when I need to do string crossings. Did you ask me that question the other week about saying that someone said their bow moves forward and backwards? Again, same answer to what I said a few weeks ago. I'm sure you must have been watching that live. But anyway, excuse me. So do it in front of the mirror. Just mirror practice. It's the only thing that you can do. Play in front of the mirror. When you're crossing, it's just a case of lifting up your arm. So when you're actually playing and you're moving the bow forward and backwards, you're kind of moving from the elbow. And that's very easy to actually move your whole arm. So that's a lot harder to keep the bow straight. And that's where a mirror comes in. If you're just crossing strings, and it's a case of just sort of lifting your arm up. But the best way to get around that and to work on that is to practice in front of a mirror. That's kind of it, really. And then you'll soon start to sort of get the feel of it. Apple Official, hello. Nice to see you here. Zachary, thank you for answering. The whole feel of using my left hand arm like this is so natural, but practicing it all out. Yeah, you just got to get used to moving your hand around. It's probably because you've never been doing it. So how are you going to, you tell me, how are you going to reach the G string notes if you just keep everything here? You're just going to move your fingers. I mean, even if you move your fingers, you can still see, even if I'm trying not to move, this area, you can see this area here is moving. Why would I not make it easier on myself and move my arm forward along with it and move my whole arm and my whole hand going along with it? Why would I not do that? Because that's going to be so much easier than just trying to stretch your fingers out. You're sort of never going to do it. So probably because you've never done it before, it's a little bit alien, but just, you'll find the groove. You'll find what works for you. Now you know what to do. You'll find what works for you. Right, I'm just going to answer as many questions as I can in the last just few minutes. Guy Fawkes, hi Alison. I started learning 3 weeks ago and I'm tackling Gypsy Firelight. No question, just sending my general gratitude for all that. Oh, you're welcome. I find Hikagaya001. I find some songs like March by Bach really difficult to play decently like the others. Do I keep trying to master it or move on? I think you're talking about March in Songbook 1. March in Songbook 1 is a little bit of a sneaky one that I've put in there. It's a bit of a red herring in there. Everybody finds March difficult, and I've put it in there for a reason. There's always one difficult one in the book, but still try and nail it. Don't get bogged down with trying to nail it without moving on. You'll need to probably move on, gain a little bit more experience, a little bit more insight, etc., then come back to March, and you can use March as your yardstick of progression or your yardstick of progress. So don't go on to book 2, the next set of lessons, until you've nailed March. But March, just know that March is a difficult one, but I was being a bit of a sneaky bugger when I put it in there in the first place for that reason. So, stick with it, but it is a tricky one. I was going to ask the same. Oh, Australia 24. I was going to ask the same about March. They're a tricky spot. Yes, it's in there for a reason, but as you say, two tricky spots, but with practice, it's getting better. Yes, it will do. Naomi Bitten. I bought the piano course. I'm at the beginning where I start to play with 2 hands. On the 3rd exercise, I'm having a hard time playing with 3 and 5 on E and G. Can you ask your question in one of the comments under a piano video? I don't have any of the piano books here, so without having to look, I'm not quite sure. But if you copy and paste your question, ask it underneath a piano video, and I will reply to you via one of the comments. Okay. And I think, do we have one more question by Michael H that's come through here, and then I've caught up, and then we'll finish. Does a better violin or strings help you sound better? Yes, it does. I mean, at the end of the day, you need to be playing on a decent violin. That's not to say that you can just go and get yourself a $50 violin, upgrade it with all the bells and whistles, some new strings, and a better bow, and poof, you're going to be so much better. It doesn't work that way. As long as you've got a decent violin to start with. So let's say you're playing on something that's about, I don't know, $250 or, £200, something like that. Let's say you've got something halfway decent. If you put a set of strings on, the strings are going to be a lot smoother, a lot cleaner. The bow is going to glide a little bit more. You're not going to have any scratchiness and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you're still going to sound pretty bad, but that's just you learning the violin, and that's completely normal. But if it's you, that's okay, because you can progress and you can get better. The last thing you want to be doing is playing on a horrible violin that's just hindering you, at every turn. So once you've actually got yourself a decent violin, a new set of strings is just going to make everything sound just easier, smoother, better. It's going to make life a lot more simpler and a lot more easy for you. Not only that, but something like parastratonica strings, which I was talking about earlier, they can really bring out the sound of a more student violin, or a sort of a cheaper quality violin. So yes, strings can have quite a good, a good difference on there. And of course, the violin, yes, it is going to make a difference, because you're not fighting with a bridge that's too straight and all that kind of thing. Right. Where are we? Do I have any more questions? Annette Tripp, what if you have short fingers like I do? Does it get easier to put your fingers? Short fingers on the violin is not a hindrance. Short fingers on the piano is also not a hindrance. You just work around it. You don't have to have long fingers. In fact, if you've got long fingers, that's great for playing the piano. If you've got long fingers, that's not so great for playing the violin. In fact, you're better off having slightly shorter fingers and a shorter hand to play the violin, if anything. So all you need to do, if you've got short fingers, I don't really believe that's a thing. I've taught hundreds and hundreds of students from all different ages, right from the age of 4 to like people in their 90s. And these 4-year-old kids have got really small hands, but yet they can still manage to play the violin fine. So it's just a case of just finding a hand position that just suits you. If you can't reach, you move your hand and you move your arm round so that you can do that. So you find just what works for you. It's the same as holding the violin. I don't have a shoulder rest. Some people have a much bigger gap between their between their jaw and their shoulder, and that just depends. Mine's quite short, so I'm quite happy without one. Some people have got quite a long neck, so they need a shoulder. You just find what works for you, really. How are we doing for time? Have I finished everything? How do I know if my violin is student quality or better? I was gifted one. The only thing you can do that is just take it to someone and ask. If you can find sometimes if you look in the F hole there, you can see sometimes they have a little sticky label and it might say what brand it is. Type it into Google, see if it says anything. If you haven't got anything in there, then you'll have to ask the person that gave it to you, or if you do think it's worth something better, take it to someone to have a look at. But that's it. That's the only way of finding out. Right, that's the end of questions. No more coming through. That's good. I've caught up. So we're going to stop there. So thank you all very much for joining me. I apologise for not doing this live stream yesterday. Just something come up and I just couldn't do it. I will be live next Friday at 5 o'clock. So we're all back to the original time that we were doing. So get your questions in. And I will see you next week. If there are any questions that I haven't been able to answer, I'm really sorry. I apologise if I've missed them. Either write them down in a comment and I'll answer underneath any video. It doesn't really matter. Write it in a comment underneath there and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If not, save them up till next week and I'll address them to you personally. Thank you all very much for joining me. Links and everything underneath, and I'll see you in next week's video or next week's live stream. Take care. Have a good week. Bye.